Hi guys, welcome to a watercolor tutorial, and this is my first portrait, and this is actually my first time ever painting faces as well. So this was a fun one to create. I hope that you learned a little bit. I know I did, and make sure to send me pictures of your artwork. I'd love to see it, and let's get started. Let's go over our supplies. So right here I have my 2 water cups. I have one for warm, one for cool water. I have here my dryer. I got this on Amazon, and I'm able to dry my layers very quickly. I have my tapping cloth where I tap excess water on here handy. I also have my Winsor Newton watercolor palette. You'll see all of these colors that I use inside your ebook that's emailed to you. I have right here my bleed proof white. This is my Dr. Martens. I use it all the time. It's a very pigmented white. It's awesome. These are the brushes that I use all the time. I love this particular brush because the bristles are very soft and I can get a very nice pointed tip so I can get lots of detail. So the size I use a lot is size 8, 12, and 4, and this is a silver black velvet brush. I also recommend having masking tape. Any painter's tape from the dollar store works perfectly fine. I like to paint my paintings down. I like when it leaves a border, and it's really nice if you have an extra cardboard sheet handy that you can move your projects around and not be tied down to your desk. You'll also see I'm a messy painter, so this has definitely helped contain some of the mess on my desk. All right, so let's mix up the skin color. We'll do that first. So I have yellow, a little bit of cadmium red, and to kind of give it a little bit more of like a, ooh, whoa, that was a lot. Scoop some of that out. A darker skin tone we can add. A little bit of blue, a little bit of brown in here. And then always have with this a little bit of a scratch piece of paper handy. That way you can test out the color. I actually really like that. So that's perfect. I'm going to switch to my smaller brush. And I am going to apply my skin color. I'm going to do a wash all over. And even on the lips too. And then with this color, I can come in and just tap around the forehead, the jawline right here, underneath the eyes. And then we're gonna let that dry. That's gonna be our very first layer. I'm gonna come in with a darker tone to this for Joseph. And this is the wet on dry technique where we are applying wet paint to a dry surface. And then you can get rid of everything on your brush and you can just scoop for a highlight. We can come in and just add some depth and blending it out while it's still wet to give a soft blend. Okay, so what we're gonna do as well is we're gonna come in and we're gonna do the hands, and I'm gonna let the neck dry, sorry, the face dry before we get onto our neck. Just because I do want there to be a little bit of a distinction between these. So I'm gonna come in now and do my first layer on my fingers and hands. And then we'll add our fine details after this first layer has dried. But we can definitely help us out by just tapping, lifting, scooping, and also just putting in some little shadows as well. Okay, so for Mary, her neck's probably dry, so I can come in and apply this neck color right in here. And I'm just gonna put it all over here because I will have her hair coming down, but I don't mind if her skin shines through. So I just applied that color right here. I'm gonna look around and see there's little baby Jesus's hands. Okay, so with this skin color, I'm gonna apply a little bit more of like a pink undertone to it. I'm gonna come in with little baby Jesus's fingers. And I added a little bit more of a pink undertone to baby Jesus. And I'm not gonna use a bunch of pigment here, so I'm gonna do more of like a wash. Tapping around again, different spots. Okay, cool. Looking around to make sure I didn't miss anything. So I'm just gonna throw down all of my first layers down first, and then I'm gonna add my details at the very end. So now I'm gonna move on to just the rest of the clothing and hair. So I wanted to make sure I have everything dry, otherwise the skin color and the clothes color will just bleed and blend into each other, which we don't want. Okay, so I'm gonna mix up, I wanted it to be a soft blue color. So I'm gonna add a lot of water into this because that was very heavily pigmented. Use a bigger brush. So I just used indigo and this nice blue color. I'm gonna add a ton of water to dilute it and make it very soft. So the trick here is to always make sure you're going really, really, really light, because if you go too dark, you're not gonna get the same effect that you might want. So I'm gonna come in and apply my first layer. Okay, so I'm gonna dry this now before I move on to any other section of clothing. But I'm gonna scoop up some parts too to have a little bit of a highlight as well. So I'm gonna scoop. Okay, I'm gonna come in and repeat what I just did underneath. This part goes all the way down here. This part is the blanket. And you see how now I have a natural separation between the lower part of his outfit and the hand here? That's because we let that dry. So now we have a nice crease at the bottom. I'm gonna scoop up and highlight, but at the top, I'm gonna come in with a more pigmented blue, and I'm gonna tap so we have a very natural shadow when this dries. Okay, I also noticed that I missed a spot. So I gotta come in to the ear, and then the neck I did not see. So I gotta fill in the neck. I'm just gonna bring the neck all the way up towards the ear, even though there will be hair there as well. So it looks a little awkward right now. We'll fix it. I'm gonna tap around and scoop as well, especially right here. And then we'll shadow all in here. Okay. Let's keep going. Let me dry this first though, actually, so we don't bleed. So coming off the shoulder area right here, it's more of this really nice, pretty blue. And then we can definitely do some scooping right here. And then the headpiece, we can come up and add this blue as well to the top. All the way down here. And again, we have a nice separation. Coming all the way up like this. While it's still wet, I'm adding in a little bit of some darker tones as well. Can come in. Also just do some scooping. Of my colors. Okay. And then I'm going to dry it. Okay, and then for Mary, what color should we do? Let's do like a cream. Okay, so I have a nice brown in here. It does have a greenish undertone to it, but it's mostly brown. I'm going to come in with a ton of water though. And I am going to apply that nice first color. And you'll see I've left a little bit of white space as well. I haven't completely covered that. I'm going to bring it around. Again, leaving some white space because this is a naturally lighter color. We can do some scoops to blend out any harsh lines that we might have. Careful around baby's fingers. Okay, I'll dry this one. I'm gonna mix up a gray color for this little blanket. So I'm gonna come in with a black like you just saw, and now I'm blending it out, and I'm going to be leaving some white, which is the paper. It's gonna come under Dad, shadow it out. Around baby's head, the blanket, and I'm just leaving some random white spots. I'm not really paying attention necessarily to where I'm putting my lines. I'm just making sure that wherever I put them, I am leaving some white gaps. Okay, then I'm gonna dry this. And then for baby's blanket, I want it to be like white. So I'm just gonna see this crease right here that we have, and right by his face, I am going to just shadow that. And I'm blending that part out with just water. I'm coming in again underneath, in between the hands here, with a nice gray color. I'm gonna just use water, and I'm gonna blend that out. I'm gonna do, I think, a more creamish undertone, kind of like Mary's dress as well, just so it stands out from his blanket. So because that blanket's now dry, I'm going in with like a cream color. I did some lines, and then I can come in and blend it out with just water. There's nothing else on my brush. There's just water. Okay. So I'm happy with this being my first layer for some of it. So I'm going to dry this completely, and then I'll move on to the hair. So we are entering what I like to call the middle zone of your painting. That's when you're like, I don't know if this is going to turn out so well. You're getting into your head a little bit, thinking you might just want to kind of give up. Keep doing layers, and I promise you, promise, it will look so much better at the end. This is just that awkward middle zone, especially if you're not familiar with painting portraits like this. It takes lots of layers. Like even when I'm looking at mine right now, I can see that it's just needs a lot of love. Okay, so I've gone in because I want their shirts to be white. I'm just going in and I'm just going to kind of create some creases. So I'm just using a wash of gray and I'm tapping around. You'll see some of my lines and creases already there, especially for Joseph's shirt. I'm going in and really capitalizing on those and shadowing, and then I am washing it out with just water like we've already been doing. And then what we're going to do as well is we're going to do the hair. So I'm going to come in and mix up my colors. I'm going to add a little bit of red into this brown, a little bit of black into this brown. And we're going to put down our first layer for Mary. So I'm going to be leaving white space. And I'm going to go layer after layer at a time, okay? Okay, that's going to be my first layer for her. I'm going to mix up a bit of a darker color for Joseph. And I'm going to come around in here. And I'm just using the very tips of my brush. And I'm doing almost like little flick motions. Again, the goal here is to be leaving white space. I'm going to come and do some hair shapes, some freehanding these. Coming in like this. He's gonna have some hair kind of coming from his cover, his headpiece, like this. I can even come in and scoop up so it's a little bit lighter. And then we can come in and fill in the beard area. And I'm just going to do like little mini flicks for the beard. Okay, and then I'm going to do the slightest little baby hairs for little baby Jesus. And I'm using a wash of Mom's Color, and I'm going so light in the smallest little brush strokes that I can possibly do. It's gonna have a nice head of hair. Okay. I'm gonna leave that for now. I actually want to scoop up some of the hair on Jesus. Like that. Okay. I'm looking around. So everything really has its first layer down. Again, we are in the middle zone. So it's gonna take some love to get us to a completed piece. So I'm going to start with the sleeve, and you're going to see that I have tried to make it a little bit easier on us, and I have done some lines for our creases. So what we're going to do is we're going to follow the line down, and then we're going to blend out part of it, just like that. for a crease. So I have another crease right here. Right there, we can come in and just soften the line out, blending it all in here. You're gonna want to soften the line, blending them out. And you see how already, just by doing that, it has already kind of transformed how it looks. Okay, and then underneath the arm, we'll just do some creases. Coming kind of from the knee area. And then in here, we can just do some nice shadowing as well. So even with like this shadowing area, like the creases, I'll probably take 3, maybe even 4 layers for it to look like what we want it to look like. So I'm going to leave the shoulder area because it's supposed to look like he's hugging her. I'm not going to do much shadowing over there. I can come in top, and I've got some lines up here to do as well. Do some nice creases coming down. I want to soften up that line. That line is very harsh. Just come in with a little bit of green. This is a little bit different. Okay. And second layer for Joseph is done. Actually, not done, because I want to just add a little bit more something over here. I'm gonna blend this out. Over here with a darker brown color, I can come in and just do some lines. Some shadowing. Making sure I'm blending out some of my lines that I have. Coming in here as well. I'm gonna add a little bit more of this color. Nope, that's not it. I want to add more gray to this. I want it darker. Adding more water. There we go. Add a little bit of indigo to this too. Indigo is a great color to shadow with because it's not quite as dark and pigmented as black. Sometimes black is just way too overpowering. So indigo is definitely a great counter color to shade with. Come in, just add some creases in here. I'm going to come in and do some more depth on the blanket, some harsher creases. So I feel like it's all about your water control. It's all about making sure that you don't have too much paint on your brush, that you're using lots of water to blend. It's all about how you use your water. I'm gonna come in with a nice brown color on this one too, the blanket. Moving it around. I'm gonna shadow this corner as well. A little bit of brown. Okay. So for the face, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna mix up a really nice rose color. And I'm gonna slowly start to add some layers here. So I'm gonna come in with Mary's Lips and put down my first rose color that I'm gonna be using. And you'll see it's very light, not too pigmented. I'm gonna add a little bit of yellow to it. Actually, a little bit more of like a flesh color. I'm gonna scoop some of that up so it's not too dark. And then same with Joseph. Come in, do his little lips. And then for the skin, I'm gonna come in and mix again a skin color. I'm gonna come in and do the top. I'm gonna blend it out because right on the forehead, it's naturally darker. And then I'm gonna do the neck area is darker as well. And then around the eyes, I'm gonna have be shadowed as well. I'm gonna try that. And then right under this side of the nose, it is naturally darker. So I just went in and shadowed down the nose. And then right here under her cheekbone, I can have be a little shadowed as well. I'm gonna dry this. And on this side, I'll have it be darker on her forehead, making sure we're blending that out. Okay. I just want to add some hair here too, so I just have a good idea of her face shape. So I'm just defining this a little bit more around her face. Okay. So you'll see I am not going dark at all. This takes definitely a little bit longer, but I think it's just worth it because then you get a much more realistic painting at the end. So I'm going to come in and I'm just going to shadow right underneath her nostrils and then underneath her lip as well. I'm going to blend that out. So yes, just lots of layers, lots of blending. Come in with more of like a pinker undertone for her cheeks, right in here. Just give her face a little bit more of a color. I'm blending that up around her jawline. And then for her nose, I'm going to just do a little bit of shadow down her nose. Add a little bit of pink on this side. I'm going to add a little bit more pink color for her lips. I'm going to dry this. Bit of a shadow underneath her lip. Now underneath her neck area, we're going to shadow out as well. And then we're going to have her eyes closed. So with a steady hand and her eyebrows. Come in and shadow her neck some more. We can go and be a little bit more aggressive now with some of the shadows around her nose to make her nose stand out. Now we can come in with some layers for her hair. Trying to go darker, still not going super dark. Being careful around baby Jesus's face. All right, so we're gonna come in here to the side of his face, and that's really dark. compared to what we have down. So we're gonna blend this out with just water. And then we're gonna dry this. Coming underneath his nose as well. He's got his cheek on this side, so we're gonna shadow in his cheek. We're gonna do some nice eyebrows. All right, and then for the ear, we're gonna come in and shadow the bottom part. And I also just wanna make this line, yeah, a little bit darker, just like that. Perfect. Again, with the inside of the ear, I'm just gonna come in and just give it a little bit of love so it looks like there's an ear. Gonna come in the corner over here. Blending it out. Okay, so again, I'm gonna come in under her cheekbone and add more layers to it. Making sure I'm just blending it out. I'm gonna do this side of her face as well with a little bit more shadow. Forehead. And then for her neck, what I want to do is I want to actually just bring up her shirt. So I'm going to come in with this darker shaded color right here. The neck was just too wide, so I'm going to cover that up actually with a crease. And I might need to dry that. And I'm gonna have to give it a second layer in order for it to blend in. Like so. I'm gonna shadow and blend. Okay, again, back to her neck. I'm gonna shadow right under here and right under here and right in here, but I'm gonna use just water to blend out the edges. Coming down her nose a little bit more. And then for the baby's little fingers, I'm gonna come in and shadow the creases. I'm gonna blend and soften. I'm gonna dry that. And then I'm gonna add more of a shadow towards the fingernail parts to make it look like it's kind of curved. And then I'm gonna shadow over here as well, right here in the corner. And then for baby's face, I'm gonna come in with a pinkish tone, and right under here where the cheekbones are, I'm gonna add a little bit of color, making sure I'm blending out. I'm gonna let that dry. And I'm using a really light color for its lips. I'm gonna come under his nose. Blending on his nose a little bit. Coming around the eye socket, making it a little bit darker. I'm then adding just a little bit more layer for the hair. Coming in with a really light gray color for the eyelashes. Using the very tip of my brush there to do the little closed eyes. And then for his lips, I'm gonna come in with a little bit more darker color. And I'm gonna blend a little bit more for his little chin. Shadow that out just a little bit. And then under his little neck, oops, gotta blend that out. Just adding a little bit more life to his cheeks. And I'm gonna add a little bit more dimension. I am not able to get in the water, there we go. To the blanket right under him. Blending out the harsh lines. Coming underneath the hand. And then blending this out as well. And then let's do Joseph's fingers. So again, I'm going to come in for the creases with a dark shaded color. And then I'm gonna come in and blend that out. And I'm gonna come and blend and shade up this way. I'm gonna dry this. So hands are tricky. They're not an easy thing to paint at all. So just take your time and try not to get frustrated. So I'm gonna shadow where the thumb crease is right in here. Again, I'm gonna come and shadow on this side of the fingers, blending out the harsh lines. Shadowing right in here, where his wrist is. And then coming in with the knuckles. Coming in with a darker shade now to just shade between the wrist area. And then underneath the blanket, I want it to be a little bit darker as well, where his hand is. And then underneath, right in here, I want it to be darker as well. And where his sleeve meets should be darker. Come in, just add a little bit more depth to the creases. And I just mixed up a little bit of a bluish, grayish color here for the more in-depth crease. So when I'm doing this, I'm making sure that I'm letting my first layer shine through and my second layer. I'm not completely covering everything I put down. This is just basically to emphasize and just give that extra little bit of pop. I know that there's a crease right here in my hand and over here, so I'm emphasizing those, but I'm also just looking at where there might be a natural crease and just kind of just making my own lines and creases. So it's basically just looking at where you've put your lines and then knowing, okay, so I have a darker shade of blue right here. I'm gonna just emphasize it just a little bit by adding a little bit of depth and darkness there. So right now you're gonna see me kind of jumping around and shadowing. That's just what you have to do on your piece as well. Because where I initially put my blue, it might look a little different than where you're putting yours. So it's just looking at your depth, making sure that wherever you are putting your darker tones, it's where you've already had your second layer down as well. And you'll see this is kind of where your painting kind of starts to come alive. Is when you're in 3, 4, sometimes even 5 layers deep. And I'm also looking at, okay, so should this be forward or should this be backward? So for example, my hand should be more forward. So this part right here should be further back. So I'm making this darker so that it gives the appearance that it's behind my hand. So little things like that as well, just looking around at your painting and seeing which one goes forward and which parts stay behind. I'm coming in just kind of repeating what I just did on Joseph to Mary, making things shadow and appear further away so that my highlights can be more emphasized. Adding some more shadows some places. All right, so adding more depth to his neck. I'm gonna add a little bit of shadow here. I already did some over here. Just kind of adding some details on to just re-emphasize. So I'm going ahead now, mixing up some brown. I'm going to come in and add some more layers to the beards. Adding more layer to the hair. I'm going in with a darker color. And my goal is to kind of get rid of most of the white space now. Being careful around little Jesus's face here. Trying to also like let those lighter colors shine through as well. I don't want to just completely cover everything as well. But there should be some shadows in here. And closer to underneath her headpiece as well. Just want to add a little bit more love to his hair too. Get some nice flows so it doesn't look so stiff. Adding more layer towards like the bottom of the beard area and around his ear, adding some little curls. Adding just a little bit more depth to his Jesus's hair. Try to make it darker in here. Okay, I'm feeling, oh, you know what? I want to fix his hands. So I just want to give his hands just a little bit more love to it. I'm not really loving how these are looking, so I'm just going to be a little bit more, I'm just going to put more emphasis on shadowing here. Because hands are just like, they're not really my thing, I'm gonna just kind of cover up over here a little bit more around it. And then I'm gonna add, I have this bleed proof white that I'm gonna add as well on the hands, mostly around the nail area. I'm gonna add right in here. I'm gonna add a bit of lightness and highlight over here. And then around top, some nice highlights. Okay, I need to dry this before I can do anything else to it. Shadow right under here. Okay, so I'm gonna start painting down this area because it needs to look like it's curving. So I'm painting more towards the bottom than I am the top part, because this part definitely needs to be shadowed more. It needs to have the illusion that it's being tucked behind. And same with the thumb area. I want this more shadowed over here, and then right here. This part needs to be shadowed too, to give the illusion that it's being tucked in fingers curled. And then over here, this needs to be shadowed way more. Gonna give the little guy a little bit more shadowing too. His little cheeks. Gonna make these brighter as well. Okay. I mean, the hands are the trickiest part, I think, at least for me. I'm not really a hand artist, but I'm feeling pretty good about this. I hope that you enjoyed this video too, learned a few tips and tricks about blending and shading faces and skin tones and layering with your creases, and I'll see you in another video. Happy painting!